So, hello, lovely peeps. We'll get straight into the introductions of our wonderful guest today. We're very honoured to be joined by Matthew Distefano. He has done some wonderful work on this podcast, The Heretic Happy Hour. He also is a contributor towards Patheos Progressive Christian, and he's just got a book out, Bonfire Sessions. Is that right, Matthew?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Also, we're joined by the wonderful Pablo, who some of you might remember from our other episode on American colonialism and corruption.
Boy, here we go.
Hello.
But today we're going to be talking about something a bit closer, near and dear to my own heart. Religion. I grew up quite religious. I then became one of those annoying teenagers that was an atheist and was really edgy and thought I was really cool. And then sort of found the church again a bit later in life, but have always been a bit cynical of it as a power structure. And sometimes it's a force for good. Sometimes it's not. I was mostly aware of Matthew with his wonderful signs he was posting in front of. Is that your church? The signs in front of?
No, that's my friend Adam Erickson. So Adam is the, I guess he's still the education director for a place called the Raven Foundation. And that is where I was a writer for them for a year in 2015. And so he's put a couple of my quotes up on his signs and they've gone absolutely bonkers and viral.
Right. Yeah. So I think my favorite one was Jesus was a person of color killed by an act of state violence.
Yeah.
Facts.
You can tell they're waiting to object. They're like,
yeah. I'm not a fan of church signs, but those ones are pretty good, and he gets people to think. And
that's what it should be all about, right?
Yeah. That's what it should.
That's be. Like the meme in The Simpsons. You know, the Reverend Lovejoy would always have a different sign when they come into the church. That's what's up, man.
Yeah,
that's really awesome.
Yeah.
Our very own Reverend Lovejoy. So Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today. I don't know, like, introduce yourself. What you're about. What is your religion about, and what are you trying to fight day to day?
Well, I guess it's kind of like yours. I grew up evangelical, American evangelical, predominantly white churches. We had rapture theology. We had eternal torment for everyone who wasn't a Christian. Or even the right type of Christian, right? Because we differentiated between Christians and Catholics. We didn't say Protestant and Catholic, right? I don't know if I ever became that annoying, angry atheist in my teenage and 20 years, but I certainly had that bent. I was very agnostic because the God I was given was didn't stand up to scrutiny and questioning. You know, when you ask questions about the endorsement of slavery in the Bible, you don't get very good answers, right? Especially if you're a thinking person. And so those types of questions, the violence of God, the eternality of torment for unbelievers, all those things don't really stand up to intense scrutiny. So, but then I realized, that was just theology, right? That wasn't necessarily God. So then you kind of come full circle and you say, okay, there still could be God. It just, maybe I had bad theology. And so that's where I'm at now. I think every time we talk about God, we're really talking about theology through our own grids and filters and our own direct experiences of the universe. And so when we point at something, that's all we're doing. I use the analogy, I could describe the moon from my vantage point, but it's not really the moon when I type out MOON. So it might not really be God when I type God or I say God.
Wonderful start to the dialogue. Thank you. Pablo, we haven't spoken about religion. What's your, I don't need your whole take in 4 sentences or less, but what's been your history with religion?
Well, so my family is, so my mom's side of the family is Catholic. So my grandpa is like super devout Catholic. And I was baptized in as a Greek Orthodox. But religion was never huge in my family, but it was always present because my older siblings. so my brother, he would always get in trouble in school, so he would have to go to the non-public schools, so they wouldn't hold him back, and those were church schools. So like part of the curriculum was we had to go to church. So and I think it might have been a Lutheran school or something. I don't even remember, to be honest. But so that my experience of religion is mostly the memories of going on to the mandatory church sessions with my brother and my sister.
I think that's a lot of people's first impression of religion, and this is why I always found the angry atheists amusing, and especially being one. So, um, like you, Matthew, I had awkward questions. So I was in boarding school, and Christian Union and the church there became my sort of like home away from home, right? And I felt quite safe there.
Right.
And but I was a precocious, petulant 12-year-old who had ideas, and I started being like, okay, so yeah, Jesus, great guy, love it, yep, cool, no objections there. It appears to me like this was written by the Holy Roman Empire, which used to be the Roman Empire but rebranded itself, and all these bits about pay your taxes and render unto Caesar, like it's a bit convenient. Maybe Jesus didn't actually say that. Maybe the people who were collecting the taxes added that bit in. And they were like, that's an interesting question, Chris. You should go home and pray. And when God gives you the answers to those kinds of questions, that's when you're welcome to rejoin our church again. I was like, what? You can't answer a 12-year-old's questions. What the?
But what happens when God tells you a different answer, right?
Yeah, you go home and think about it, and you're like, I think like man is fallible, and this was a document written by man. You can see there are different translations and different interpretations, and I'm still okay reading on the balance that this guy called Jesus had a lot of important things to say, but I have some concerns and doubts about the big organization trying to stand in between me and him, collecting money. Like is that not a reasonable concern to raise?
Well, it certainly seems reasonable to me.
And how do you then manage to carry on a certain theology without an institution behind it, and keep it the way it is over time?
That's a tough question. I think okay, so combining the 2 points I was going to land before. I was this angry weird atheist, and then I went to university, and I still still fascinated by religion, right? And so my dissertation was going to be to study religious people and atheists in a group and get them to play a game where they could trade and betray each other and then record their results, right? Which was really fun. In order to do that, though, I had to go to all these religious communities, join them for a few weeks in a row, convince them to do my experiment. And I realized, like you said, Pablo, I had all these, like I found this, there's this paradox, or the Bible contradicts itself in this chapter and this chapter. And all these people in these religious communities were like, I don't really care, dude. Like this is just my community, right? Like we have a weekly sermon where we think about trying to be a better person, and we do some charity work together, but mostly this is just my community. I don't really overthink religion too much. And that's when I realized that the sort of being angry and judgmental was mostly on me, because most people's perception of religion, I think, is like it's just part of what they do without really questioning it too much, and that's okay. So and how can you be religious without a community? Well, a lot of it is the community, right? Like it's a big part of it.
Well, and I guess because you can have the community, so it's more of the institution, right? Like we're saying, like, yo, we don't want, like, I don't need the middleman between God and myself. So, but you still want the community aspect of it, right? There is the fellowship
Yeah.
aspect of a religion.
So I think Matthew's much better positioned. So I'll just give my quick answer and then pass over to him. I believe that the problem is power and the need for people to be right. And so when you have that person that's in the top of the hierarchy and gets asked these questions, and and needs to, when you see the church arguing with scientists, being like, oh, they don't know, the world is actually this many years old. That's when the whole thing falls apart and looks ridiculous. But I think the best church is a broad church, open to ideas, opening to differing opinions, accepting of black sheep, right? Accepting doubting Thomases. Like, I think that's really important. And some churches are confident enough and open-minded enough to be that broad church where it is both the community and some doubters and some power structures, but that's okay, and it sort of all works out for the best probably in the mix. But that's obviously not always how it happens, and there are some very sad stories of people that have been deeply let down by religion, deeply judged by religion. A lot of people like lost their families, right? I think there's a crazy disproportionate number of homeless homosexuals in religious countries because they got kicked out of their home and kicked out of their family. So that's where it goes.
I think
back.
anytime that we have a religion or a faith system that sets up doctrines and dogmas above people, anytime we have creedal statements and says this, thou shalt believe X, Y, and Z, I think we set ourselves up for failure. And see, the early church in Christianity was not immune to this, but there was a certain way of going about their Jesus following. And it was much more about ethics and serving the poor and the oppressed and what is called the least of these in the Bible. And then that turned into a system of thought of how to think about Jesus and who Jesus was, rather than letting the metaphysics of God and Jesus and the interrelationality of that needs to be secondary, in my opinion. I think any good faith tradition, any good quote unquote religion that is doing it right is about how you live your life and how you treat other people with compassion and empathy. And the irony about most Christian structures is that the hierarchy was flipped on its head by Jesus. Jesus was all about serving from below. So there's like a theology of above and a theology from below. And ironically, even Martin Luther talked about a theology from below, even though he got a lot wrong. We typically talk about God in terms of like omni this and omni that, and it's like power from above and like trickling down to the common plebs. But Jesus talked about things from below, about being least. Paul talked about this too, about serving others, and that can be abusive too, especially when it comes to slavery and racism and things like that. But I think the intention there is to rethink power structures, and that you are your true self as a human when you are leading from a place of servitude and compassion and empathy. And that's when religion is quote unquote right, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a whole historical development with Constantine and people like that, and that type of theology, and the blending of the state and the church. Anytime power and money are involved,
it corrupts,
it corrupts the whole thing.
It's an impressive like story, the rapid growth of Christianity through the Roman Empire, and it just struck like reading through how often, like how little Jesus talks about judging people, right? Like if
well, he only talked about it to the ones who judge,
Yeah.
right? And he used it pedagogically. He used it to get you to think. Like, if you want to judge people, fine, but you're condemned by your own judgment and logic.
like he is without sin, cast the first stone.
Yeah, he didn't talk about judgment and sin necessarily very much to the quote unquote sinners of the community. He talked about it to the ones who deemed others sinners.
Yeah, this was my impression of like and again, like it's amazing of how big the Bible is, how little direct quotes of Jesus there are.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just these wonderful sections where again and again and again there'll be these, the temple will be doing one thing and Jesus will be like, nah, sorry, like what you've got on with your power structure and your rules, it's not about that, And then this person's like, we don't like him because of the race he's from, or we don't like him because he's a tax man, or we don't like her because she's a prostitute. Jesus is like, I'm gonna go hang out with them and like ignore all of your hate. Like it's not about that at all. It's just striking how often the thing that makes Jesus angry is normally like the rich and the powerful, right? And I think, is it the first story of Jesus as a young adult, like going into the temple and overthrowing the merchants' tables, right? You have turned my father's house into a den of thieves.
Yeah, in John's gospel for sure. Yeah, it's interesting. His first sermon, quote unquote, in the synagogue in Nazareth, he really upsets the crowd when he includes when he tells a story about Naaman the Syrian and how Elisha and Elijah were there to bless people outside of their own faith tradition, and he almost gets thrown off a cliff for doing this. And I think when he gets angry the most, it's when people are using the name of God to oppress others.
Yeah, I always thought taking the Lord's name in vain meant using Jesus as a swear word, but it's actually those people using it for their own ends, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what it means to me. I used to think, don't say God damn it and don't say Jesus Christ under your breath. But I think it really means just, using the name of God or Jesus or whatever you want, and then trivializing it, or using it even worse to make profit on it, and these charlatans, especially in America, the Kenneth Copelands and people like that, that are like, oh, Jesus wants me to have a G7, because the G5 isn't good enough.
What part of the Bible is that from?
Yeah.
The Book of Ballad.
Yeah, that's right. Book of Ballad. You're gonna write that one.
Yeah, and there is this weird blend of, I mean, America takes everything to 11. God bless you.
Oh yeah, it goes to 11, man, for sure.
It's impressive. Yeah. I think it was actually what walked me down from the angry new atheist was like, I got it when, these British documentarians were going into the weird Bible Belt, the Baptist church, protesting funerals, Westboro Baptist Church, specific flavor. Protesting funerals with their homophobia, and interviewing these horrible people that you're like, there is no way you are the voice of God on earth. Just definitely not.
No.
Then when you see like the similar approach of documentary making, you see Richard Dawkins shouting at just a reasonable, calm British vicar who's offering him tea. You're like, dude, like, come on, calm down. Like, you're being the shouty, angry one now. What's up with that?
Yeah. I find that fundamentalism of any variety, religious or otherwise, it's not a good look. And I'm of the belief, like, you can be religious and not even believe in God. It just depends on how we define religion. I mean, if you're judgmental, if you're if you're retributive, if you're sacrificial in any way, sacrificing others, if you scapegoat others, though, those are all tenets of religion. And I don't necessarily think you need a deity to be religious.
Yeah. This was the first episode of the podcast. I deep dived on the hypocrisy of atheists. I find, it's entirely rational for a group to declare themselves, the in-group, as better, holier, like more moral, more just, nicer, smarter people, and look at the out-group and throw stones and cast aspersions. And I just noticed it was happening, that like, I get it 40 years ago when, religious organizations were trying to ban movies, and then there was a fight, but often in Europe now, religion's gone into such free fall decline that it just feels like you're kicking an old man while he's down, and it's like, look, just let people believe in what they want to believe in. They're not bothering you. So I'm aware of. I think that's the big thing as well, is that in preparation for this episode, I was talking with some people. I shared the video with you. There's a communist preacher, right? Also American, was similar, saying how Jesus would have been a communist nowadays, sort of showing all the examples of how anti-capitalist he was, how anti-power structure he was. And this was in a very left-leaning group. And so like a lot of them are super anti-religion, and religion's evil and religion's terrible, and religion is just a lie to get power over people. And I'm like, oh, thankfully, no communist organization has ever abused their power over people, ever.
Right. Yeah, I would tend to agree that Jesus was communist in a way, although that's a bit anachronistic. But I would say it was voluntary communism. I don't think Jesus had any interest in state-sponsored communism.
Authoritarianism, yeah.
Right. So it was all voluntarist. So people, you did not have to become a Christian. Jesus didn't tell people they have to do this. He invited people to follow him. And yeah, you could manipulate and abuse any ism.
Yeah, well,
and I think
the pattern
I think
repeats, right? In across groups,
Right.
again and again and again, we see it. This is my problem: is that yes, the church has had abuses while it's in power, but so have atheist organizations, and just honestly, right now, the challenge is to find a group that's been very powerful for a significant period of time that hasn't massively abused that power and done terrible things. It just seems to be a people problem rather than an inherent
Yeah.
problem of religion. But
Right.
with good reason, people do expect more of the organizations claiming to be the bouncer to get into the kingdom of heaven, right?
Right. Well, they say they are, so you got to hold them. If they're going to claim that authority, you probably should hold their feet to the fire a little bit, so to speak.
Yes. And they should be able to take that criticism, one would hope.
One would hope, but yeah, none of us are very good at taking
We're
criticism.
talking about, shut up, I'm the best at taking criticism.
Yeah, right. That's why being a writer is so interesting, because it's basically taking criticisms all day and learning how to how to be better at your craft. It's an exercise in humility.
And is
I'll
that
say.
part of the problem? That there was a period when these ideas were new and exciting and ever changing and coming into interaction with other ideas, and then at a certain point an organization gets a certain size and a certain age, and it's mostly run by what's the average age of the seniors in the Catholic Church? 70 something.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was something
And
like that.
you know, we are unsurprised to find out that they are not fit to lead the moral charge on gay rights, on HIV in Africa, and the use of condoms, on various issues
Yeah.
where, you know, they should be leading morally, but they are lagging behind.
I was gonna ask, is like, what's the process of, again, that if you have such entrenched institution, how do you like prepare it to move into the future? Like it just feels so immovable, and so many people subscribe to it. But we're I don't know, like the pace of change on Earth and society is just so quick, and the boat, like, it has its course, and it's so hard for it to, like, to hit that like 90-degree turn.
Yeah, it's a big boat. It turns slowly. If I had the answer to that, I would tell you, because I mean, I think it starts with educating youth. Youth are more apt to change their mind about something. They're not entrenched. They're not going to dig in their heels as much. But often I become cynical and skeptical about the rate of change. Like, we just change too slowly and people get harmed in the process. So, I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, even if you talk about like climate change, like, we can do things that change things, but at the rate that we're changing them, is it going to matter? I mean, the skeptic in me or the pessimist in me says no, but I hope I'm wrong.
I'd like to see ideas that used to be radical normalized, right? Green shoots of hope.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite expressions is things always happen a lot slower than you'd expect, and then they happen overnight, right? There's been a few big changes in the last 15 years, just in terms of gay marriage rights. I think there's just really important dialogues going on. The Mormon church has been an interesting one. So I have a few friends who are Mormons, and they've gone through a big change over the last 15 years, from, you know, these are the things you can't question, to everyone's questioning these things, so we better get ahead of this, and burying our head in the sand isn't dealing with it. And likewise, you know, whereas I think probably 10 years ago, most of the people you were having conversations with would have been branded as dangerous heretics, and you ironically do that yourselves. I mean, you tell me, do you get a lot of hate or do you get a lot of interested people wanting to know more?
I get a mixed bag, but I think I get more love than I would have if I was writing and doing what I'm doing 20 years ago. So there has been some change, like with LGBTQ rights. I mean, like I came out bi recently,
congratulations,
and I've been married.
by the way. I thought that was
oh
well, that was what prompted us to get in touch, because you were having, a time and a half on social media, and
there was there was still a lot.
As
but
a long-time admirer, I just thought, well, look, if I'm not going to reach out now and show a bit of support, when would you, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. It's been, but I've gotten mainly support, but then there are people who are still like really ignorant and really like what I would consider backwards thinking. But then like my wife and I talked to my daughter about it, who's going to be 11, and her response was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And not like I don't care about my dad, but like to the youth, like they don't, this is normalized.
That fight
like,
has already been won, right? In 20 years time.
I think like it's being won for sure. Like there are people who are doubling down and digging in their heels, but a lot of, I mean,
so you posted yesterday, as they will find, they are just shouting to a smaller and smaller echo chamber, like lonelier and lonelier.
Totally.
Right? They're getting left behind.
Right. Yeah, they're being left behind. Right. I mean, I find it funny when it's like there's, Pope Francis, as liberal as people think he is, like he comes out and says he still can't support gay marriage and all this, and I'm like, who the fuck cares? Like, pardon my language, but like
at this point, yeah, like who's looking to the Pope? 15-year-old, like,
yeah, I mean,
God,
like,
oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna be gay, but man, I guess Pope doesn't like it. So.
Sorry, Francis.
To me, it's like, well, who cares? I mean, like, it's no offense to Catholics. Like, I mean, I know gay Catholic theologians and things like that. So it's like, I mean, this whole notion of like, there's a mouthpiece of religion. There's this one guy, normally an old white dude, who gets to speak for all Catholics or all Protestants or all Orthodox or all Muslims or all Jews. Like that is going to the dustbin of history slowly, but I think with technology and for all the ills of social media, there are positives. And like people like us talking, I mean, 20 years ago, you'd have to be syndicated on a radio show to have conversations like this. Like that stuff's going away quicker and quicker. And even in America, like, I don't know if you saw the research, I think only 47% of Americans are affiliated with a religious institution now. And that's for the first time, I believe.
In a long time.
Maybe it's due to COVID. I don't know, but it's under 50%.
Yeah, I saw that story and it was huge.
So this is like more of a generation thing then. So like it's kind of like as one generation is kind of phasing itself out, the younger generation will take power of these institutions and I guess take a more, I guess, lenient approach to things.
Let's be clear. It's not like, the line's that fierce. It's for the last generation, there's been a bunch of people having to bite their lip at family dinners and a bunch of people having to hide who they are. Right? It's been really sad. I think we're finally embracing the first generation that feels comfortable enough, that has the numbers to be like, nope.
Yeah. I mean, it's and I mean, it's that whole adage like they talk about in science, like you stand on the shoulders of greats. It's not like modern quantum physicists are smarter than Newton. It's that they just came after, right? And so you stand on each other's shoulders. And then also with like intergenerational trauma, your goal, I think, is to pass on less and less of that. And incrementally, hopefully we pass on less and less than that until we're not passing it on anymore.
I
don't know if it's ever going to be perfect.
A good friend of mine, and I think it speaks to sort of this authoritarian generational divide. But his dad actually was a quite liberal priest. I think rector would be the term, a senior preacher in the Church of England. Yeah, he told his son in no uncertain terms, like, I have failed as a father if you are not smarter than me, and therefore you should be disagreeing with me most of the time.
Yeah, that's wisdom. I think that's wisdom right there, and putting the ego in its place, because we want to be the ones who know it all. We want to be the ones who teach our kids. And it's like, yeah, we do that. But also, like, I learn a lot from a 10-year-old. And my daughter teaches me a lot about just life. And we have to have the wisdom to acknowledge that for
Yeah,
what it
it's not
is.
like she has to be the teacher. It's just being open and having conversations with an open
Totally.
mind is what spans the
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah. I think that's what Jesus meant when he's like, we have to be childlike to enter into the kingdom of God. Like, to be childlike is to be open minded, to be to view the world with awe and wonder, and not closed off and boxed in. And this is our confession of faith. This is what you have to believe. This is, it's none of that.
And this
Like,
is the sad
that-
legacy of Jesus. He spent so much time denying rules, like denying their need.
Yeah.
He didn't come down and be like, okay, guys, I've got it. Like four things. Like, follow these, and you're good with my
Yeah.
dad, right? Like, we've got a system.
Yeah.
He was very clear, like all these dickheads following the rules for the wrong reasons, the wrong things in their heart. It's not going to fly. Like, it's not what it's about. Sorry. And it's just tragic that and the reason he had to do that, to break down those power structures, to right the wrongs, is because that is just the natural bend of humanity. Like it will keep happening again and again and again. And these prophets keep coming and they tell us that's not the way. And the reason they're
Right.
so wonderful is because they think for themselves and they question the rules, and they think, what does it actually mean to be a good person in this day and age? And it's so
Yeah.
sad for someone to see that story and be like, taking down notes. Rule number 1 is people to shun
Yeah.
is okay. I got it. Yeah. And it's funny that the golden pattern you see in every religion, right? Like this rule comes again and again: treat others how you'd want to be treated, and also, like, I don't think Jesus spent. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he didn't spend a lot of time giving instructions like, set up a religion in my name, right? It's really important that we make a
Yeah.
religion called Christianity, and these are my
Yeah.
commandments, right? We have a like.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Jesus is while he was decidedly Jewish, he interpreted his Judaism to expand the borders of Judaism. So he would take the 10 commandments, a list of don'ts, right? You shall not do this, you shall not do that. And he's like, all right, we're going to summarize these on 2 things you're going to do. You're going to love God and you're going to love your neighbor. And they're really the same thing, because you can't say you love God unless you love your neighbor. And go. And, it's like,
Yeah.
we don't, when we love other people, when we lead with empathy and compassion, you don't have to tell me not to steal your stuff. You don't have to tell me not to sleep with your wife or something. It's like, and I think all the great mystics of each tradition, basically, they have their context. The Buddhist, Bodhisattva has their context, but it transcends Buddhism. It's the Sufi mystic is Muslim, but their teachings transcend, and it's almost like a way that you can live out that in any context. And I think Jesus fits right into that mystical interpretation of his faith. And you're right. I don't think he came to start an organized religion in his name. That's when we take an adventure and I'm missing the point, I think.
And the comparison with Buddha is the perfect one, because Buddha, I don't think Jesus did, but Buddha directly said, please don't make a religion out of me. This is actually,
it's like
please don't make a religion out of me.
It's like the quote from the Buddha, who says that if you come across a man who claims to be the Buddha, kill him. And that's the interpretation I get of that. It's like, you got to kill that idea that you are the Buddha, and like it's transcending this thing that we as humans like to do. We like to put it into a box in a system.
Are you familiar with the work of Krishnamurti?
No.
I love this. It's brilliant when you can recommend something that you know the other person is going to love with all of their heart. So Krishnamurti is a fascinating figure. India has these long-standing traditions of traveling prophets and wisdom,
right.
and giving bigger and bigger speeches. And Krishnamurti just happened to be one of the wisest and the most popular from a very distinct line right? The family business.
Uh-huh.
That sounds a bit cynical, but wait till you hear what he comes up with, which is brilliant. So this just happened to happen sort of in the 60s, 70s, right? A lot of Americans traveling to India, a lot of money washing around.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
formed this religion around this guy. And he was 13 when he started pulling in crowds. And then by the time he was 16, he was dropping some wisdom bombs. And then by the time he was 20,
Yeah.
there's 100,000 people
Wow.
waiting to hear him speak through like a rickety PA system. And they set up this
Yeah.
order around him called the Order of the Star. And they declare him the prophet. And his first speech to this Order of the Star is just a masterclass. I put it, I'm not going to put it up there with the Sermon on the Mount, but please read it, you'll love it. He just says, my first act as head of the Order of the Star is to disband the Order of the Star.
Yeah.
He goes, you have come here looking for knowledge and wisdom, and that's a beautiful thing. Like I applaud you in that effort. However, just this natural human instinct you have, we all have, is to look for an organization that's going to take you there. Now, organizations can take you from point A to point B. They're called travel companies, right? Like they do really good at that. But unfortunately, the sort of journey you're requiring, it's just not that simple. And the only reason you look up to me is because I haven't looked to someone else for the answers. You need to start thinking for yourself, look inside, accept what seems loving and right, reject what seems hateful and wrong, and keep adjusting as you get that feedback. And you will, because of that, you'll always feel like a wash at sea. You'll never have a firm, lovely idea to cling hold to and feel, that was exhausting. It's really hard working. Life is tough and it's really difficult finding all the answers. But finally, at least I've got this box checked. I know the path to the afterlife. I know I'm a good person. I know I'm in the right in-group. He's like, unfortunately, the path of being a good person is never having that certainty. Always having to recalibrate and always having to work stuff out and keep working at it.
Yeah. I often say, like, our epistemology, our how we know what we know, our starting point of knowledge is direct experience. And as we continue to have more direct experiences and come into contact with more people, and we adjust as we go, like you just said, we don't become rigid and fixed in what we think we believe. And I think we set ourselves up for failure when we do, when we white knuckle our doctrines and we hold on to them with clenched fists is the minute that we're not leading from direct experiences. We're not, Jesus used the term repent, which means just simply to change your thinking. Like, you need to change the way you think about this. It's not about feeling bad for what you've done, or that doesn't have anything to do with it. It's about changing your thinking and changing the way you approach situations.
How prevalent is this? This is sort of scientific method to theology in a way, where it's like you're not saying I know it all. You're willing to be proven wrong by experience or something of the sort. Like, is this like, I'm assuming it's not a common approach.
You'd be surprised, and I think science sometimes gets the monopoly on thinking straight, and we like a simple narrative, right? This often gets couched in terms of science versus religion, right? That's how the old atheists would have it. I mean, you're right. I understand the point you're alluding to. That you shouldn't. One of my mottos right now these days is like, have a strong belief, but hold it loosely. So there's no point in just being like a wind vane, turning with whatever you hear, you just agree with and go, maybe, whatever, right? Like, have an opinion, debate it with someone, but be prepared to change if you hear differing opinions. And I don't think that's unique to the scientific method. I think it's sad that dichotomy has developed in certain places where the church has decided to go against science. But Malcolm Gladwell does a great series on the Jesuits and how much time they spend thinking deeply and like in a very Buddhist way as well, understanding the paradoxes. Like, because someone said that, I'm going to think hard on, is the opposite true? Like, that would be really important to deep dive on before we make a judgment.
Yeah, I think it is similar to the scientific method in that if better science comes across, that supplants the former theory. But I think some people like Richard Rohr in the Franciscan tradition, he stated that before he learned any theology, he learned 4 years of philosophy first, and then he didn't learn theology. He learned the history of Christian theological development. So there are faith groups that are approaching it more like historians and philosophers, and I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. If this is predominantly an American thing, where there is the dichotomous split between science and religion. I don't know, or if maybe in America we just do it big.
It is a bit. So I am familiar with that exact dichotomy.
Yeah.
The last three popes have quite enjoyed talking to astrophysicists and hearing their take on things, and the Vatican has an astrophysics department. So it always bewilders me when some preacher from Texas says science is wrong. I'm like, why, dude? Like, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Honestly, you're just embarrassing
Right.
yourself right now.
Yeah, I've never
By
understood.
the way, I think Dawkins does when he talks about theology. Like, he shows his ignorance.
Well, I've watched debates between folks like William Lane Craig and then atheists, and I think Hitchens was brilliant.
Yep.
But there's a lot of them where I'm watching the whole thing and I'm like, okay, these people are smart, but I think they're arguing a straw man.
Yep.
Like I'm just
Everyone
watching it
loves to
going
argue
like,
that, yeah.
and it's fun and it's entertaining and it's drama because it's like people are going at it and they're being cutting and sarcastic and all that and witty. But at the end of most atheistic versus theistic debates, I'm thinking like, I don't think anyone was talking about God.
Yeah.
They were all talking about bad theology.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the bad straw man of the atheist versus the bad straw man of the theist, right? Like that's who everyone wants to fight. Like, that's fun.
Yeah, well, that's why I mean, a straw man was I believe they would set up literal straw men to practice before big battles, and so they were easier to beat, and then you faced the actual army.
I've the point of this, the philosophy of this podcast is to steel man the hell out of something before you criticize it, and I've learned. Especially like now we're starting to get bigger, and you want to be successful and play with the algorithm, and it just becomes really easy to find a big target and shit on it, and the algorithm will give you another 100,000 little boost of serotonin, and you'll be like, oh, I'm important and my work is valid.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter, because honestly, like, how much more important is it to find the smartest person you disagree with, like really, and discuss with them. Really, like, and I see this too often, someone says, oh look, someone said something stupid on Twitter. Okay, is that news? Like, really? Like, is that news? Imagine if you were walking in the high street and you said overheard one person say one stupid thing. Like, is that your public announcement? That's what you're going to use the world's largest microphone that history has ever developed to be like, hey, look, someone said something stupid somewhere. You're like, cool. Do you have any good ideas to share? That would be really exciting.
Yeah, I always laugh at those. We have these viral videos on YouTube. It'd be like, and they're totally clickbaity. It'd be like, conservative roasts liberal about, gender identity. And it's some like 17-year-old girl who's about to go to college
against
or something.
a professional speaker.
Right. Who talks really fast and with authority and with confidence. And you're like, this is so dumb. Like, this girl just got her driver's license or something. Like, who cares what she really thinks? Like, it's easy. And we all do it. I do it too. I see, Right Wing Watch does it. The Friendly Atheist does it. Hemant Mehta, I love that guy. But some of it is just like, it's so obvious, the lowest hanging fruit, that at the end of the day, like, no one has said anything.
So you talked about the wisdom of the Franciscans. Pablo, are you familiar with the Franciscans as a group?
I'm not at all.
I'm going to go into my layman's understanding. Matt, you're my only safety net if I'm chatting shit, so please feel free to interrupt me.
Well, I'm not Catholic, so I'm going to trust on. I know a little bit,
Well, look, if I'm wrong, fight me in the comments, Catholics. Bring it.
There you go.
So,
Well, the Franciscans aren't real Catholics
Well,
anyway. I say that
no,
to
they're the best. They're the best. They're the Steelmen of the
know.
Catholics,
Yes.
and that's why I love it. So,
Yes. Yes.
remember the Crusades, where the popes were having loads of kids and loads of money and loads of power, and anyone that questioned that would be killed by the Knights Templar and all this, right? Like there were so many sects and orders that sort of would get on the wrong side of that power structure and die. They all died. And the Franciscans were one of the few that consistently got away with speaking truth to power. And one of the main reasons is because they're just so above criticism. They're like, their first rule is like, money? Yeah, man, just get bad vibes. We're just not going to touch it. just not feeling the benefit of money on balance. So, and I can't speak to them all, but I was lucky enough to study in Canterbury, birthplace of religion in Britain, and so there were a bunch of friaries, right, and monasteries dotted around, and one of them were the Franciscans, and I was this strange, angry atheist, and I was lucky enough to be working on the high street in a sales job, so I was always talking to people, and slow time of the day, guy dressed like a Jedi walks past, gonna chat with him. And sure enough, like, yeah,
of
why
course.
not? And he invited me in behind the wall of this like 700-year-old building, and who wouldn't take that offer? As atheist as I was yeah, okay, cool. And for tea as well, you can't say no to tea. It's honestly a cultural outrage. If a British person offers you tea, you drink that tea. So finally got to see this beautiful historical building that I'd seen so often, and went behind the wall, and they just have these wonderful gardens. They grow their own fruits and vegetables, and they sort of believe that the best way to honor God isn't through money or power, but to make a beautiful garden, and then the public can appreciate that, and that's how you're sharing your love of God with the world. And I'm just watching that, being like, okay, this is hard to disagree with. Like, I don't have many angry atheist counterpoints to their garden or their tea, but I'm ready for it. And then he asked me, so, are you religious? And honestly, especially for an older British person to ask that, was crossing a line. Like, there's just this unspoken rule that we don't talk about religion or politics, right?
Yeah.
But he wanted to get into it. So I was like, well, I used to be, but I'm pretty disappointed in how the church handled condoms in Africa during the AIDS crisis, and like the idea that being gay is a choice, which is obviously laughable because as a straight man, I've never tried to be gay. I just can't imagine the logic that would make you think that would be, oh yeah, Wednesdays I'm gay.
Yeah.
And then, so I'm talking, it just strikes me that the church should be leading the world morally, and instead, as you'd expect from a bunch of old men, they're behind the curve. And he just struck me to my core. He said, I've always felt the same. I shouldn't say this, but I really hate the homophobic element of the church. And I was like, okay, you have my attention. And the only thing I think I hate more is those who, through insecurity, have to push their certainty on others. For me, my faith is the opposite of certainty. And I have to wake up every day with the possibility that I might have given 65 years praying to something that doesn't exist. And I've heard the arguments. They are compelling. There is every chance that I am praying to something that doesn't exist. I'm just there like stunned in silence, and he leans in and he goes, but, I wake up every day and I try and make the world a better place. And do you know the expression, like, God is love? Like, even if God's not real, at least I spend every day trying to share a bit of love in the world and a bit of love for my fellow man, and so I have to be happy. Like maybe that's enough. And
That's it right there.
yeah, like what do you say to that? Like I had nothing. I had nothing.
Yeah. I think that's what, I mean, that's a beautiful story and a beautiful depiction of what religion could be, where he's absolutely right that faith and certainty are not synonymous. They are basically opposite. And he had doubts and he had skepticism, but it was just about doing right and doing justly and doing what is beautiful for the sake of those things, rather than to appease either a community or a god. I find that person understood not only Franciscan, theology and ethics, but what it means to be a human being.
Yeah.
That's the best argument. The best argument for God is growing a beautiful garden. There you go. I mean, this guy's a hobbit. I love it. I love it.
I think, to give the church its due, there have been quite a few times in history where they have been ahead of the moral curve. Quite importantly, Martin Luther King, an obvious example. Pablo, we were talking about the role his religion played in pushing him ahead of the curve of the modern day politics, right?
And then you also have, you have different religious movements that were also tied to, like, I guess, social justice and civil rights and things like this, right? Martin Luther King Jr. is one of them. You have, Nation of Islam and Malcolm X. Again, just it's people, even though you have such a diverse country of and all kinds of people and all kinds of religions. It seems that the community center is usually around religion, and in any, when you get to the granular county level of America, like that's where people fall back on, and that's how we organize around.
And this is what I say to the atheists, like, you have a valid point. Like, religion has often been found wanting, right? Like, yep, like I'll drop the tally. Like, disappointing record often. But before we throw out the baby with the bathwater, like, what's the proposed replacement? Because everyone can be a critic, right? It's very easy to be like, but often, as I said to the lay people, a religion is a community. It's a charity drive. It's a weekly morality sermon. I might disagree with the leadership, but
yeah, and like I said earlier, I think you could be deeply religious without believing in a God, and I think you can believe in a God and not be as religious. I mean, like, someone may look at the Buddhist as a religious person. Someone might look at the concept of the Bodhisattva and say they're a religious person, but really the Bodhisattva only has a couple things they're doing, and it's all about ending suffering, ending human suffering. So if you're going to look at someone like that and say, oh, they're so misguided because they're quote unquote religious, it's like, what nobler cause and purpose to a human life is to end the suffering of those around you?
Yeah. The idea that if you weren't lucky enough to be born in a parish vicinity, then you're going to hell.
Right. Oh, I think those are all just fears and, human fears and deep-seated anxieties. And I think I don't like to think of any religious activity or any religion or faith tradition as some sort of afterlife description, how you get to the good place and not the bad place. I think religion for me, or my faith for me, is just now. It's about how I live now. I mean, what happens after I die will take care of itself. I mean, it is what it is. Like, I don't know what's going to happen, if anything does happen, but I'm still going to live my life as if, all that we have is right now in this moment.
Wonderful. Are you familiar with the concept of simulism?
Simulism? Is that the idea that this whole thing's a
Yeah.
simulation? Well, I mean, what I would say to that is that if I'm leading with my direct experiences, I know I'm experiencing something. So however we describe it, whether it's like a dream within a dream, like the movie Inception, or whether it's the Matrix, I'm still experiencing something and I know that to be true. So I'm just going to live
Yep.
as if it's real in some way, whether it's a dream or not,
Yeah.
or whether it's a
I've
simulation
come
or
to
not.
the exact same conclusion, like whether a simulation or whether we've been, implanted here by aliens by accident or on purpose. Actually doesn't matter. Like the result is the
Doesn't matter.
same. I mean, in fact, the
Yeah.
funny thing is that if we're in a simulation or we've been planted by aliens, then yes, to all intents and purposes, there is a God. and there might be a very strict rule set.
Yeah.
The simulation might be entertaining for someone, or it might be educational for someone.
Yeah. What? Yeah. This is a giant petri dish, and there's just some
Right.
scientist
And
god
if
who's
this
like,
petri dish
what the hell is
if
going
this
to
petri
happen?
dish performs well, we might get a reboot. That might be an afterlife.
Well, it's not looking so good right now, man.
It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah, it's a mixed
On
bag.
average, that's the
It's a mixed
problem with all things. If you take an average, it's meh. But there are wonderful people.
Oh, yes,
and there
yes.
are terrible people.
Yes.
So what are we just simulating? What percentage of the population gets sorted, like you said, into the good place and bad place? Random distribution in a vacuum.
Yeah, that just seems like a weird purpose for the simulation, right? Be it computer or God, like just having a
Yeah.
big. What's the Japanese machines where the balls drop in the left or the right side?
Yeah.
The Rube Goldberg machine? Is that what it is? No?
No, I'm trying to think what it is. With the pins and the balls. Palinko.
Oh, there you go.
Palinko
Okay.
machines. Yeah, it just seems like a waste of a universe to just be a sorting hat for heaven or hell.
Yeah, I think that's nonsense. I like I've talked about the Bodhisattva and Mahayana Buddhism. I like the concept of everyone eventually finds enlightenment, whatever that means. Like, this is all there's an Eastern Orthodox concept. I think it's theosis, where everyone is made like Christ. And so, yeah, the sorting out business is religious. It's our futile attempt to explain justice,
gamify
or
it, right? To give a high score.
Yeah, right. Jewels on your crown and all that. Yeah, that seems like an odd point to all of this.
Just a big waste.
But maybe.
Maybe.
I don't.
Keep an open mind. That's our advice.
There you go. But not so open your brain falls out.
Open like a parachute. Not like a sieve.
Not like a sieve. There you go.
Like, what's the ideal situation here for? Look, at the end of the day, we have religion is a huge part of existence for humans, right? We sort ourselves based on how we worship in a lot of places, and even like, I mean, right now I'm in Thailand, but I live in a Muslim neighborhood, and it's just like, so everyone congregates usually based on either culture, but usually religion. So what's the healthy transition to where, we're not the most dogmatic, like we're not regressive and dogmatic, but like we're both still being fulfilled spiritually, and getting all the things that being part of a church might provide to us. Whether it is again, like you said, community, or whether it is like, I guess, guidance for how to live a life.
Well, I think honoring your tradition, whatever tradition you come from, and then realizing that the best of your tradition transcends your tradition. So it's like the analogy of if you're going to walk your canoe across a river, you get to the other side, you don't continue to carry your canoe through the woods. You drop the canoe, meaning like a Buddhist. I think someone who truly understands Buddhism is that they've transcended the label Buddhist. So someone who understands Christian tradition in the best, it's like you can be honoring of your tradition, but you go outside of its borders to serve other people wherever their need is. I think we can have interfaith dialogues with Muslims, with Jews, with Hindus, with Buddhists, with Sikhs, with atheists, and say, I honor my tradition. I don't toss out the baby with the bathwater, but I realize the best of my tradition is serving the needs of human beings and the world.
Amen.
Regardless of their tradition.
Amen.
And that's why I talked about that Jesus story. His first sermon is saying, look, the best of our prophets, Elijah and Elisha, they served Naaman the Syrian, who killed Jews in battle, right? He's a general. And when he had leprosy, they told him how to bathe in the river Jordan to get rid of his leprosy. And the point isn't like a miracle necessarily. Oh, was it a miracle that he washed in the river Jordan, he got healed? No, the point is that the best of the Jewish tradition went outside of their borders to include others where other religious people might exclude them. And see, that's how you interpret your faith correctly.
Yeah. Amen. And I don't mean that ironically. And I think like my perspective is historical and psychological. Jesus was a Jew. He wasn't a Christian. Christianity grew huge. Islam grew huge. Buddhism grew from nothing to huge. And you don't do that by closing your mind, closing your eyes, like closing your heart. The best ideas that have like sustained for thousands of years started because they listened, they talked, they incorporated, they adjusted. Like the reason why we celebrate spring and winter solstice and we have these ideas of like rabbits laying chocolate eggs to celebrate the rebirth of Jesus. Madness. But the point is, it's like a bunch of people had a bunch of ideas and they competed in the marketplace of thought and with open mind and shared and became better because of it. And so as soon as someone's, my co-founder describes it as like the turtle defense, right? As soon as someone's just going to withdraw into their shell and be like, the less open I am, the more I can sustain this position. I know I'm losing. I know it's like you don't win a fight withdrawing into your shell. But you stay in the game for a little bit longer. And anyone that's like, oh God, I just have to limit my losses. To my American brethren who've just found out that less than half of people are attending church regularly, let me show you Europe, where it's less than 15%. And our churches are turning into nightclubs and cafes. And look, yeah, that's not my answer to this problem. Build a cafe. but if all you have is a hard heart and judgment, as you said, Matthew, like you're going to get left behind. Like that's the sad truth, is that 20 years ago you could cast people out and judge people and find them wanting, but the shoe's on the other foot now. And for those that have an open heart and open mind and are listening at this important time of change, I really think as we move into the next 50 years, I hope religion has some moral guidance and authority to offer, but it will have to earn its seat at the table.
Yeah, and it'll have to be the best of religion. I mean, the best and the worst of religion can be summed up in Gandhi. Gandhi heavily influenced Martin Luther King Jr. and was heavily influenced by the Sermon on the Mount, which he read every day. And then he was a Hindu, and he was killed by a Hindu nationalist. So you have right there the best interpretation of his faith tradition and the worst interpretation of that faith tradition, all in in kind of one event. And the more people associate themselves with the nationalism of their religion or the dogmatism of their religion, the more they'll be left behind. And the more they take the open borders policy of their faith and realize that we're all just having this attempt at pointing towards something, it's all just a pointer, then I think the more it will have that seat at the table.
Yeah, that's I like that way of looking at it. Of we're just we're pointing at a thing, but it's not doesn't mean that that's the thing. That's
Right.
that's where I operate. I'm a poet and MC, so this is my
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
And that's what you're doing with poetry, and that's what you're doing with art. Like you're pointing at something that then hopefully people from their perspective are going to resonate with it, but they're going to probably even draw more meaning out of what you're saying based on their life experiences. Because I think, I mean, I've heard lyricists say this, like, I didn't even mean that when I wrote it,
Yeah.
but someone took what they wrote and they had even broader meaning for them. And then someone else might come out and be like, oh, well, I heard it this way, and it means this way to me. And if you're in an interview or something, you'd be like, you don't admit that that's not what you meant, but it's be like, oh, I just left it open for people, right?
That's right. And that's what, like, it when you have symbols, right? That is like, again, using the moon. Everyone has a relationship to it, right?
Right.
So like it allows for that, individual meaning to manifest, and again, it'll be for each one of us, it'll be different, right? But like, we all know what the moon is.
Right.
It all means something to each of us.
So there's something
Right.
to be said about religions that have embraced the uncertainty. Taoism, I think, is the classic case where uh, they realize that as soon as you put something into words, it could be misinterpreted. So they put everything into
Mm-hmm.
poems, and they're like, why don't you just reflect? Like the I Ching is just a bunch of poems, and they're like, why don't you just reflect on this poem and try and be a good person while you think on this poem?
Yeah.
That's all I've got for you. Okay.
Yeah, that's all we got.
And I think some of the most beautiful interpretations of most religious texts and non-religious texts, any book, is there's someone thinking deep on what did that mean. Like, not
Yeah.
I'm sure this meant that, but
No, I think the minute you put certain meaning on something is the minute you diminish it. I mean, if someone asked me what's the meaning of life, I say there is no meaning of life. You live your life and you draw infinite meaning from it. The minute I say what the meaning of life is the minute I've put it in a box and said this is what it is, and it's like, no, I think it's like if you ask what the meaning of a piece of music or a dance is, it's like the point of the dance is to dance. You don't get the final note and then, oh, now I get it. You see the whole thing for what it is and just let it be what it is.
gentlemen, let's end on a lovely quote. Does anyone have a good quote for such an occasion?
I almost bought this sweatshirt the other day that had a picture of Jesus, and it was a quote that said, "I didn't say that."
I'm gonna do a quote from the Buddha. I think it's fitting. Words have the power to both destroy and heal. When words are both true and kind, they can change our world.
It's a good one. That Buddha was onto something.
He was, and there is actually an argument that the golden circle, the evolution of religion, Islam, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, the fact that so much religious enlightenment happened in a period of 200 years, right? Most of the major world's religions were formed. It is considered in part to be largely because of the Silk Road and the interchange of ideas.
Mm.
And there is an argument, I think, with Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, all of them. Is it one person? Like, does it matter? if you believe it's the Son of God, then yes, it does. But if it's the greatest hits of 500 years of civilization, like as some of these religions are, if we've taken like the greatest philosophers and their greatest thoughts, as you can imagine in oral tradition of here's some wisdom, pass it on, that's sometimes getting merged as corporations do nowadays, like mergers and acquisitions, right? Yeah. Is that any less of a story? Is that less compelling? The wisdom of 600 years of all of people's combined? Like maybe one person delivered that well, even if you believe it was one person. Like, what are you saying? He never listened to anyone or never read anything, right? Like, it is still the accumulation of, as I say, the Silk Road, of finally opening up of borders, of this just crossover of hundreds and hundreds of years. And the church and even the scientific method is an example of Catholic monks and Muslim imams, right? And Jewish rabbis working together, studying things. So, yeah, that's the definition of the Reformation and before it. Like, yeah, how is the story any weaker when you don't declare Super Bowl hero 0 BC?
Yeah. Actually, better. I think it's a better story.
Right?
Yeah. It makes for a more compelling story.
Yeah. Brings us all together. Matthew.
Check. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Of course, Chris.
Yeah. And I hope you'll join us again. This was fun.
Gonna burn it down. 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 Gonna burn it down.
Hey, and Kelly talking to Michael about my life and shit. I think these books is finished, but I keep writing shit. Like Logic, I spit that peace, love, and positivity. But these haters got me down and it's fucking killing me. Yeah, they grilling me and filling me with anxiety. Fucking Puritans sitting on thrones of piety. High society on the backs of the blacks and the poor. Church structure be twisted into a Christ abhorred. But never more the status quo, it's run its course. Like Katy Perry, I'm coming like a dark horse. Full force, no remorse, assaulting tour de force. Chillin' with spitting that real shit, that boom shit, that trap shit, that rap shit, I'm bout it. My status, don't doubt it. Been on my grind, breaking bars down like a convict, admit it. Tearing walls down like a misfit. You talking shit? Hey, you talking shit, then suck my dick. Nah, I'm playing, I don't mean it, it's just a fucking game. My wife's a bad bitch, the only one that give me brain. Y'all is crazy, so serious and off your chain. Like Cypress Hill, you got me tripping and going insane. Filling my brain with shame, I ain't gonna be the same. Like a stalker fan coming at me like a moth in flame. I spit that fire, all you do is twist desire. Like Jim Carrey, you wearing a mask, liar, liar. Everything about you fake like Mrs. Doubtfire. So I'm here to burn this shit down like the campfire. Like the wildfire that ran roughshod through my town. The religious order, fuck it all and burn it down. They've been tested and failed, now you've been dethroned. 6 feet under a cabin with a gravestone, you'll never know all the harm you caused until you listen to all the people you fucked over with your division. Your religion, 4 walls, God's partition. Cut you off like a second temple circumcision, but fuck that. You know people ain't a doormat. I'm finna clap back, you a mouse and I'm a house cat. Your shit's bananas, I kill it like a fruit bat. Your dogma wax straight out of center off Mookie's bat. Look at that, you're insecure more than a little bit. Cause I'm a savage, not a jury, I don't acquit, I'm on your shit.
You done knocked off your fucking crown. Turn your churches and buildings into a ghost town. Passed down like the devil and all his fucking brothers. Who's with me? It's high time we burn this mother.
Gonna burn